Hi, I am Nicole with Seams of Sunshine Co. And today I'm going to be walking you through how to sew a book sleeve. So, spoiler alert, it does turn out, it will be okay. It holds books, it will hold pens or crossword puzzles, whatever you want to put in this. Honestly, it could hold miscellaneous items and be thrown in your tote bag. But I love the way it turned out so much. I'm going to be putting dimensions and just giving you steps on how I completed this. Now, I will forewarn you, this is not your mother or your grandmother's sewing tutorial. In fact, my mother was probably having random chest pains through the process, not knowing why, but it was because I was doing things my own way, and it would kill her if she saw how I was doing it. I am a very type A person in my day-to-day life, and I love sewing so much. It's a great hobby for those that are type A, but honestly, as a mom, sometimes I just want to sew and relax and enjoy myself and get something done, and I don't want to follow all of the rules that you're supposed to follow. So I'm going to show you that it can still turn out. Sometimes it's a miracle that it turns out, but it did. So we'll get into it, and I hope you enjoy. So here I am just preparing to cut. I grabbed my Bible because that's one of the larger books that I have, and I wanted to make sure it could fit something pretty significant. So I'm going to measure this a couple of different times, and honestly, this is where I say mothers and grandmothers everywhere would have a stroke if they saw what I was doing. But we just want something to be square and mostly accurate, but it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I didn't press it before. That's a cardinal sin in sewing, but it does turn out, so I hope this encourages you. But if you do want a little bit more of a pristine product, I would say press all of your material, pre-wash all of your material before cutting, and then measure twice, cut once. So here I'm just going to use my liner as a guide. You want your liner to be slightly smaller than your outer layer, if not the exact same size. But you don't want it to be larger than your outer layer, because then you're going to run into issues where it doesn't meet on the edges properly or lay flat. So I am just very chaotically cutting this, and I'm really sorry to anyone that's type A that's watching this, because honestly, watching it back is a little bit painful, but it worked. So cut what you need, and it'll be okay. So here I'm just cutting the batting, which is going to be sewn to the outer layer of the pouch. This looks really chaotic, but I truly just want to cut it larger than the material I already have cut, and then I'm going to trim off the excess once it is all sewn together. This is the type of batting that I used, but any brand will work. So here we are, finally pressing everything together. I just wanted to make sure all wrinkles were out of the fabric before we started sewing things together, because that really does affect the way your project will lay. So just press everything flat and start sewing. If you already know how to thread a machine, you can skip this whole process, but I wanted to include it in case there were people that were unsure. I had to reload a bobbin because I just didn't have enough thread on it to start this project. So that's what I'm doing here, and then I'm going to thread it through my machine and get started. One thing most people will tell you is not to mess with your wheels at the top of your machine very much, but the previous garment that I sewed was silk and it needed a lot less tension than what this material will need, so I did adjust it for that, and I'm just setting it back to its traditional settings. Okay, so another thing that I did that most sewists or seamstresses would absolutely recoil at is that I didn't mark my lines, my quilting lines, prior to sewing them. And for the most part, it worked. I measured with 3 fingers, but you can see this one got a little wonky, and I was debating taking it out, which I ultimately did. So I ripped about half of that line out, and now I am very specifically saying, okay, I'm going to come down this line and sew it. After this, I did end up using pens to mark what the line should be. In the past, I use a water-soluble marker, and I measure with my straight edge to mark the quilting lines. That's really what I recommend. But again, I was just kind of going with it. I must have been in a mood this night. I was just sewing by the seat of my pants. All of that to say, if you want really straight lines, use a straight edge, use a marker, measure it, or use a straight edge, measure it, and use pins, which is what I ended up doing here in a minute. Once the quilting layer is done, you're going to take it and put it right sides together with the inside layer, which is going to be your liner. I left about a 3-inch section here in the middle where I'm going to use that to flip the material right side out. So I'll sew all around the edge except for that 3-inch gap. I will leave it open so I can flip the material, and then we'll sew it closed at the end. I also recommend going ahead and identifying where you're going to put your ribbon and putting it in a layer in between the inside and outside layers so you can sew that in. I forgot that step and had to go back and do it. All right, now that we have identified where the ribbon actually goes, I did want to say we would traditionally input this when we're sewing all around the outside where we left the gap originally. We would leave a gap for the ribbon, we would leave a gap for turning it right side out. It is important that you tuck your ribbon inside of the layers because you're going to turn it right side out. So that's why you saw me doing that. Now, this is why we left the gap. We are going to turn it right side out and then stitch all the way around the edge to create a final outer seam. This is the last step where I have folded the pouch in half and I'm just sewing each of the sides together. The last note to add is that I used a lighter to burn the edges of my ribbon at the very end to ensure that they will not fray.